In the franchise low point series, we are up to the New York Islanders. And yeah, I had to have this logo on the board. I also have this one that I could have put on the board. There's a lot of Islanders options. And yes, Mike Milbury's name is there just all by itself because I was thinking like, okay, when we get into the lost asset category, I could go through lots of names, but there's more to it than that. And of the teams that I've covered so far, the Islanders might be the most interesting when it comes to complete and total tire fires for a long time. And it has taken this franchise a very long time to shake off just the ineptitude that was going on. And it's weird because this was a team that was the epitome of success in the early 80s, right into the mid 80s. And then things changed. So most losses for any goaltender, Billy Smith has 230. I don't think that means that Billy Smith's a bad goaltender. I also want to add as well this hat with its weird orange camouflage and this jersey. This is one of those times where I will put on a hat and a jersey and go and show it to my wife and go, this just kind of came together. This is just, I didn't plan this, but it's perfect. So anyways, Billy Smith, excellent goaltender, has the most losses because he's there a long time. And again, when you're there the longest, you're probably going to suffer the most losses, like Marty Brodeur was in the video yesterday for New Jersey. Now, lost asset, honestly, for me, it's Mike Bossy. So as 83 ends and their Stanley Cup winning ways are done and 84 gets started, Mike Bossy just was not healthy. He was not 100%. And a career that could have been 1,000 or more goals, and he was just seemingly effortless in his goal scoring. He was one of the greatest goal scorers I ever saw. Mike Bossy, to me, is that lost asset because it was a big part of what accelerated the New York Islanders ending up going into, what would become an endless rebuild for a while there. Now, the other lost assets, you have your budget, so they weren't able to spend money. Ownership was changing hands to the point where it went to somebody who didn't have any money. It would be sort of along the lines of somebody going, hey, the Canucks are for sale. Me going, I'll buy them. All right, excellent. Where do you want to sign? Oh, okay, sure. I got $120 million rolling around. Sure, I can do that. So Spano takes over for a while, and it was an absolute nightmare. And this was during the Milbury era as well. So Mike Milbury got to deal with this guy that he didn't like right out of the gate. And along with budget and ownership being sacrificed, so was pride. There was no pride to being an Islander anymore, and that was something that was huge in the 80s. You've got Trottier, you've got Bossy, Nystrom, Merrick, Potvin, Morrow, Smith, Melanson as his backup. Like, you had a lot of guys, there was some pride in wearing that jersey, and this was the team that you had to be afraid of come playoff time, and they won 19 straight series. And by the late 90s, early 2000s, it's a joke. And the worst part was then they rebranded like this in the middle of it. Hey, so the fans are kind of turning away. We're not selling any jerseys right now because the Islander jerseys don't generate a lot of sales. And so they decided to go with this ensemble monstrosity. There's a lot that was lost along the way. So I could get into Ziggy Palffy, which was budget designed. I could get into Ole Jokinen and all of the other wonderful assets that were traded away, Roberto Luongo. But in all honesty, all of those come down to something which is budget, ownership, pride, or Mike Milbury. Now, I don't have Tavares on the board because since Tavares left, the team got better. So I'm not going to have Tavares on the board because the team didn't suffer after he left. They picked up Lou Lamoriello and they got better. So yeah, there are a lot of things that have gone wrong with the New York Islanders along the way. And it feels like they're starting to get back. It feels like the new building, which is opening next year, is a huge part of it as well. Now, short-term coach, Earl Ingarfield. Earl Ingarfield. Yeah, there you go. 1973 was their shortest-term coach, and he only coached about 30 games. Not in the Hall of Fame, so again, this is highest points scored as a New York Islander. Has to be a retired player. Most wins for a goaltender by a New York Islander not in the Hall of Fame. Brent Sutter. I can't argue Brent Sutter into the Hall of Fame. I could argue the Sutter brothers in their entirety into the Hall of Fame and how insane it was that they were all really good and basically all decided to go for Chicago or St. Louis. And Glenn Chico Resch is the leader in wins. But I can't argue Glenn Resch into the Hall of Fame either. Maybe for what he had to go through in New Jersey. Maybe that I could say, you know what, the guy deserves some Hall of Fame consideration just for how miserably bad Colorado and New Jersey were, and that he didn't just throw his arms in the air and retire. Brent Sutter and Glenn Resch are the leaders there. The longest drought this team had from the playoffs, this era, 1995 through 2001, 7 seasons. And you know what's funny is, too? They only wore this jersey for 1 year. 1 year. And then they went to the old Islanders logo on this jersey. Because it was just the logo that was the problem and not every other design element in the jersey that was the problem. They're even like, how do we take advantage of the fact teal's really popular right now with San Jose fans? I don't know. How do we get teal into the Islanders? No, we can have the fishermen and teal and have some teal under the logo. Sure, we can do that. Dear Lord. But of course, the We Want Fish Sticks book, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It is a very funny and tragic read if you're an Islander fan. But I think it's recommended if you're an Islander fan, right? All right, year one, this team was miserably bad. 30 points, 12, 60, and 6. 30 points. That's miserable. So Detroit fans, here's your hope for the future. Year 11, they won the Stanley Cup for the 4th and final time in a row. 42, 26, and 12, 96 points. So it shows with proper management and solid drafting, you can go from worst to first and win a Stanley Cup. This is why when people say, do you think X team can win the Stanley Cup in the next 10 years? Sure. Because, again, the Islanders show you can do it in 5 or 6. Go from worst to first and be a Stanley Cup champion if you're being run properly. Which is why it was even more painful when we looked, a decade after that and went, what the heck went on here? I mean, in 93 itself, they go to the conference finals in the year that every third-place team went to the conference finals. But in general, it's been a complete nightmare for the New York Islanders since the end of that dynasty. Their lowest points percentage against any team in the league, Nashville. They have a .414 winning percentage. Against Montreal, it's only .415. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put both on the board because there's only 1 percentage point difference between the two. And they would play Montreal, obviously, more than they play Nashville. Lowest goals for per game versus Vegas, 2.50. Low sample size. So with a smaller sample size, Nashville's on the board as well with a 2.59. Apparently, the Islanders don't like playing Nashville. Goals against per game is highest against Pittsburgh, 3.52. Makes sense. They're in the same division as Pittsburgh. They played against Mario. They played against Crosby. And there you go. And right about the time that the Islanders are shuffling off into mediocrity with their lighthouse, that's where Mario Lemieux's Penguins are making their ascent to the top of the Patrick division at the time. Just absolutely bizarre. And then, of course, the Islanders in 93 knock off those Penguins. And the Islanders celebrated a few years later by going to this design. Now, lowest points per game, and again, this is a minimum of 100 games played for a player. Eric Goddard, .047. Not known as a point scorer in his career. Steve Webb, him neither. .057. Ken Baumgartner, everybody loved Bomber, .074. Dean Chenoweth, .082. And Mick Vukota, .088. Have I mentioned the Islanders have always had toughness in their lineup? From that 80s franchise right through until now, they've always had some toughness in that lineup. They've never been an overly soft lineup to play, as far as I can remember. I mean, I'm thinking of, now they've got some tough guys in that lineup too. Just a lot of sandpaper, not necessarily enforcer level, but a lot of sandpaper. Now, lowest save percentage, minimum of 50 games played. Jerry Desjardins leads in there with an .881. Tommy Soderstrom, .886. You guys remember Soderstrom? Kelly Rudy, .889, and Glenn Healy, .890. So Glenn Healy with an .890 save percentage. Healy had a nice little run there. Late 80s, it was Healy and Fitzpatrick, and it looked like that was going to be their tandem for some time to come, and then it just didn't happen. One of the many things that looks like the Islanders, you go, yeah, so they got this asset that's going to, they got rid of that asset. Okay. Well, this one looks promising. Oh, he flopped. Okay, all right, well, never mind then. Goalie with the best name, I went with Goran Hagasta, Swedish goaltender. I thought, yeah, Goran Hagasta, because that's a great name. Now, I thought about Chico Resch, but I've already got Chico on the board here, and Glenn Resch is his given name. Nobody knows him as Glenn Resch. So, Chico Resch, and, Goran Hagasta. So, the one thing with the New York Islanders is it does feel like they've distanced themselves from the Milbury era nicely. But of course, there were a lot of other baffling things along the way, like Neil Smith. How long did he last? Yep. And then they gave the job to Garth Snow, who'd been their goaltender months before that. And that was that big, bewildering, baffling. Now, I think Garth Snow was a decent enough general manager. Towards the end, him being fired was a foregone conclusion. I actually did a video on the channel of Garth Snow's history, and his honestly, his trading wasn't that bad. But again, the Islanders just couldn't become relevant, and didn't really become relevant again until Lamoriello took over. It's been an ugly history, kind of sort of literally. But it does feel like they're coming out of it now with some prolonged success, looking very likely, with Barry Trotz behind the bench and Lou Lamoriello as the general manager. But again, we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and yep, it was not a great redesign decision. And yet, at some point, someday soon, I anticipate we'll have these as thirds. I do. I think at some point the New York Islanders go, you know what? We'll embrace the ugly and we'll use them as thirds. Why not? Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.